Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Running in Circles podcast. It's me, Pallav Raval, and we're back with another episode on another Sunday. So, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about something on the lighter side. The trend of this season so far has been a lot of heavy stuff. So, today is going to be fun. Joining me in this today's episode are two of my friends. Joining for the second time in the season, we have Vidyuth.
Hey everyone, what's up?
Yes, happy to have you. And joining for the first time in the season, we also have Vishnu.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Pallav, for having me on the podcast today. Excited to be here.
Yes, happy to have you as well. So let's start the episode. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about cricket, basically. Everything around cricket. It's probably a good time to be a cricket fan, but also there are so many challenges.
Depends
term-
on the country, though.
Yeah,
It depends on the country where
Dep-
where
yeah,
you want to be.
it depends on which country you are and what is the fan following of that country. But it's a good time for cricket, and there are challenges in cricket as well, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So, to start off the discussion, I would ask Vidyut first. What do you think is like what is cricket? In what state is cricket right now, and what do you think about it?
So I follow a lot of Harsha Bhogle because he is
Asha
the voice
Bhagwat,
of
the
cricket.
voice of
Yeah,
cricket.
right.
Yes.
The voice of cricket, and he puts things in a very candid and crisp perspective, right?
Yeah.
And of course, he's been with the entire scene from a long time. And one thing that he has said that's probably very true right now is I think I was watching the very famous show called The Test, which is
Yes.
streaming on. Yeah. So
Yeah.
in that he said, right now the current state of cricket is mostly towards T20, right? But he was actually describing Cheteshwar Pujara's effort in one of the tests, and he said that Cheteshwar Pujara right now is almost a curiosity to the newer generations because the
Yeah.
term
Oh, I remember that
resilience,
episode.
the term resilience dies out in the modern game, and
Yes.
where T20 is the modern savior of the game. So that in
Correct.
itself tells the current state of the game, right?
Yeah.
There are efforts to try and bring back the the excitement in Test cricket. For example, they tried introducing day and night Test cricket.
Mm.
The Ashes is still, I feel like,
Ashes is still like
the
classic.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very classic thing, and people
Yeah.
still love
Like
that,
everybody,
right?
if you're a hardcore cricket fan, you look forward to that, Ashes
Correct.
game in Lords, or like
The
Ashes
Ashes
game at
games,
the
right?
MCG or something like that.
This is a very this is a hot take actually. I think Australian Test cricket honestly is the savior of Test cricket
Oh,
because
that's a
they,
hard take.
yeah, I'll tell you
Considering
why.
that
Because
English
because
invented the game. Yeah.
yes, and it's not even India who is still even though they give more efforts towards playing a lot of cricket, I feel like Australian Test cricket is probably saving Test cricket because they have the concept of the Boxing Day Test match. That's one thing,
Oh yeah.
right? That attracts a lot of attention. Secondly, they are always in the center of some sort of controversy, right?
No, I.
One day or the other, right? Like,
Yeah.
so that always spices things up. And
Yeah.
whenever there's, they have classic rivalries with almost,
Every
with like
country.
both, yeah, like with like both the big nations. Like with England, it's always the Ashes, and with India, you have whenever you have
Border.
Virat Kohli.
Yes, I have a
and
hot take
they-
here.
Irfan,
They love playing against Kohli.
Yeah.
And they also advertise Kohli is coming to Australia
Yeah, yeah.
on television.
Also, I have one hot take here. I think Border Gavaskar
Uh-huh.
Trophy is getting to the hype of Ashes. Is that a hot
it
take?
is getting to the hype of Ashes.
Yeah.
I think it's thanks to the last, I think the 2019 one where it was
Yeah, yeah. Rishabh Pant's crazy
yeah,
is at the Gabba.
that I honestly feel just revived a lot of Test cricket. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's in a good place. Like when the Test cricket was like the whole concept was dying out for some time, and I think after a few of the matches with Australia, like whichever teams played, like I'll tell you why exactly that. It's probably because how the modern influence is taking over. For example, if you take a Border Gavaskar Trophy where that entire high step Gaba was just phenomenal to watch. Like it had everybody on the edge of our
Yeah.
seats, right? With Rishabh Pant just going berserk, and then you have Shubman Gill play that opening role, and what
Pujara as
was
well.
more
He took so many
exactly
hits to
like
his head.
he was the wall at that point, right? Like he was probably keeping everything together so that others can, do the fireworks. So Test cricket is being revived with the modern influence of the game. And the other one that really strikes my mind is that one test match between England and Australia where Ben Stokes just pulled that match out of like
Yes, I think
nowhere,
it is
right?
Headingley Leeds.
And yeah, heading Leeds,
Yeah.
where he hit that 100 out of nowhere. And
Yeah.
like there was like so much drama at the last over where Nathan Lyon is missing out the run
Yes.
out.
I remember the non-striker was Jack Leach, and like
Jack Leach, yes.
he had to
He
literally defend for his life, for his country,
correct.
just for that win.
So those kind of matches, right? Like
Mm.
when there is something that's being uh advertised out of nowhere, right? I
Yeah.
think they are saving the grace of Test cricket,
Yeah.
right? And so at the moment, I think it's in a revival phase, right? And it's in a good revival phase. It's not even a struggling revival. And it's thanks to how I think things are being blended in well, like with how modern Test cricket is actually using a lot of uh, non-textbook shots, right? For
Oh
example,
yeah, yeah.
people think like nobody thinks about playing a reverse scoop in like the second over for Test match. Like, why
Yeah.
would someone
Like
do that?
oh my God. Like I had never imagined that a guy like James Anderson would get scooped by someone called Rishabh Pant.
Shut right. So it's possible. So that's why I feel like Test cricket, at least for the cricket fans, is doing well. Maybe it's
Yeah.
not attracting new fans, but it's
Yeah.
not losing fans.
Yeah.
So
I
that is
think it I think it was like WTC that kind of brought
Mm.
people, I mean, got people
absolutely.
excited. Like anytime there is something that says, "Oh, World Cup," you're gaining something, and people are really excited about that. They're
Mm.
like, "Oh, okay, India's gonna play the World Cup or something," and everyone wants to watch. If it's like a regular game, like nobody wants. I mean, only the ardent cricket fans would go and watch that, but like
Yeah.
the regular people would not really pay attention to it. So yeah,
That's true. And also, I'm just looking at the WTC rankings. I'm actually pleasantly surprised to see that it's not completely one. Okay, it is
Absolutely.
somewhat one-sided.
Yeah.
Yeah, Australia and India are like number one and number two respectively,
Yeah.
but number three is surprisingly Sri Lanka. Maybe it's
Yes.
because of the nations they have played against, right? But still, regardless.
Regardless,
And
deserve.
number,
Yeah.
yeah, and like New Zealand and England are like, number eight and number five respectively, which is actually very, you know, it's not
Little surprising.
really, yeah, it's a little surprising, right?
Mm.
And very interesting is Pakistan nowadays.
Mm.
They are actually having a good run in general, right? Like even though they are putting up good fights, is what I'm trying to
Yeah. Yeah.
say. Every match which Pakistan has played against any country, they don't go down without a fight, right? If they get all out for like, let's say 120, they will make sure that, even if they are losing, they will make sure that, they would at least pick up like 7 or 8 wickets.
Yeah.
So the fighting spirit still exists in certain teams, right? So it's like Test cricket is still in a phase where, it's still grabbing the attention of people who are still
Ardent fans.
ardent fans, like Vishnu said, right? So
Yeah.
ardent fans of cricket can, Test cricket is still alive. So that's to be
If only they
exciting.
made it easier to understand what PCT is,
Uh,
more
yeah.
people would like look at.
Yep.
That's just a
Yep.
joke.
That that's true.
Yeah.
But when it comes to other forms of cricket, right? I think T20 we don't even need to talk about. Like,
Yeah.
we need to talk about very little because it's obvious, right? But
Mhm.
I'd like to go back to ODI cricket. I think this year is the World Cup, right? Is it World
Yeah.
Cup this year?
Yes, this year's a World
This
Cup
year?
and it's happening in India.
It's happening in India, right? So
Yeah.
I feel like
that's
I feel like ODI is the one being left out, kind of.
it's left
Like
out.
It's
it's
in this
mostly
weird.
bilateral series and everything. Like
Yeah.
for tests, it's the World Test Championship. When every game you play goes towards that. But
Yeah.
ODI is just ODI, and T20 is exciting because IPL happens every year, and like there's
Yeah.
like if there's more leagues happening around the world, and but ODI is you only get
Yeah.
that for bilateral or once
Yeah.
every 4 years for the World Cup.
It's
OD,
fascinating
OD,
because at one point of time, ODI used to be like
the only
only,
format. Yeah.
Yeah,
For World Cups, right?
Yep. Even before World Cups, like there used to be so many classic games, like like during the era of Tendulkar and
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Lakshman.
NatWest
Like at that
2002
point of
series. Do you guys remember that?
yeah. Oh my goodness, that
2002
was
series, India tour of England.
India tour of England. Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That
coming back
picture
to
of
ODI.
Saurav
Yeah,
Ganguly, waving
yeah, yeah,
to
waving his
good,
thing.
waving his shirt.
That was like Saurav Ganguly was a revolutionary captain. Like
Absolutely.
I feel, yeah, like I think like Indian cricket. I'll come to that later, probably
Yeah.
how Indian cricket has transformed itself. But coming back to ODI, like Vishnu said, right, it's probably being left out. But in general, what I really loved about the last World Cup was anyone could win that.
Yes.
yeah.
Anyone was, even the final, you could not split the teams apart. Like
Yeah, that's true.
England merely won because they had more boundaries.
And
Yeah,
they had
that's
luck.
that's
Only
just sad.
that.
Yes. Like
So
ODI, I know
I mean,
ODI is suffering from like the middle child syndrome. Like it's not getting
yep,
attention of the mom,
exactly.
mom or dad. But
But that,
last World
I
Cup
think
was
last World Cup was
amazing.
even
And
yeah,
plus, like it happened in England, right? And England, no matter what we say, they are still the inventors of the sport. And their latest coach, who is Brendan McCullum, I think he's sort of revolutionizing white
yeah.
ball cricket and red ball cricket for them.
Mhm. Yep.
So they have this.
Baseball.
Yes,
That
that's the term. So baseball is sort of making cricket exciting. Cricket and ODI, for example, the average score previous World Cups have been 250, 270. But then the latest World Cup, it has been 320, 350, and people are still easily chasing it down.
I mean, Baz himself as a player is so aggressive. Like
Yes.
the World Cup before that, I think that was in Australia, New Zealand.
Yeah.
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 Like New Zealand were wrecking every single team. Like,
Yes. They reached the
like
finals. They beat us.
yeah,
I mean that's New Zealand, right? They keep
Yeah.
they just they keep they're on the down low throughout all bilateral series, and then they come to the World Cup and they get to the semifinals or the finals. That's
yeah,
how they do it.
Like the Croatia in FIFA World Cup.
Yeah.
yep. Oh goodness. Like Baz as a player itself is very, aggressive. Like
Yeah.
calculated aggression is his style, right? So although I couldn't see much of that when he was playing for RCB, I'm already a little disheartened.
Oh man, we are sidestepping now. We are not going down that road.
We should have an RCB episode.
No,
That'd
I'm
be a very sad
getting enough mentions on Twitter these days. I don't read that anymore.
episode.
Yes. So Vishnu, what do you think about this, or should we move on to the next one?
Let's talk about the next one.
Okay, sure. Okay. So you know, again, we talked about how T20. I think we mentioned T20 the least so far, but I think that is exactly what's bringing people into cricket. So now I want to know, P, how do you think can more countries participate in cricket, and what do you think can make it competitive? Like as of right now, we have what, there are 80 to 85 countries that are taking part in T20 cricket. How do you think this number can grow? Vishnu, why don't you go first this time?
I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is cricket actually getting into the Olympics,
Hmm.
and that could be something that gets much more attention and more countries playing the game.
Yeah.
And like, there's no reason for cricket not to be in the Olympics, because you have a shorter version of the game now, which might have
Yes.
been a complaint of the past. You have games that get over in 4 hours at the max. So more countries will probably come forward and play the game. So ICC should like push for cricket being in the Olympics,
Hmm. Fair
especially
enough.
if US or China are the big countries of the Olympics start playing the game. I guess
Hmm.
US is kind of picking up on the game. They're gonna be hosting
Yeah,
one of the
it's
World
the
Cups.
Indians in the US who are making it popular.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's see. That
I'm
should be a
actually
good step
quite
forward.
surprised. Like, again, I diverge a bit here. I'm surprised how US hasn't picked up cricket, considering, West Indies is kind of close to the US. Like, at least a certain part of the US, I thought would have, picked up cricket a little bit. I guess what might have happened is players from the US might have gone to the West Indies to pick that up.
No, no. I think that I'm not entirely sure if this story is correct, but I think the story is again the cricket was invented by England, right? So
England, yeah.
the first country to be liberated out of the English kingdom was America. But then America, I don't think they picked up on the rules or they didn't like the sport that much, so they rejected it. Uh, and then they started their own version, which was again baseball. A simpler version, I guess, considering less rules and less formats and stuff. But
Yep.
yeah, I think US is like one of the, like, again, it's not a America isn't a commonwealth, but I think one of those English liberated nations that didn't pick up cricket,
Cricket.
and had it picked up, I think it would have been massive.
Actually, it's a good thing they didn't pick it up, because I don't think India would have had the attention it has, because
Yeah.
like
That's
cricket
also true.
has, like, I think again I go back to what Harsha Vogle says. Like, I
Yeah.
really like the way he phrases things. Cricket as a sport has, you know, brought together people in India, irrespective of their origin, their religion, their state, right? It's
Yes.
brought an entire country that's so diverse together with such
Yeah.
unified, unanimous reactions. So it's it's a good thing that US didn't take it away. I mean,
Yeah.
like, India has something
Imagine
for its own.
imagine if they came up with something like IPL back in like the 50s or something, and then we would never have something like
We would have never
Yeah.
reached the peak of it then.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's good.
Again, we diverge here. So
Yeah, but
bring us back to the
but yeah, again, absolutely agree with what Vishnu said, that Olympics, again, it's not like a standard that every sport needs to have, but it's just people know about curling more than cricket. Like if you're watching the
exactly.
Olympics,
Like,
right? Exactly.
what is that game?
Curling
What
is
is
nothing
curling?
but ice
I know
skating.
what it is. Like, it's so hilarious to watch it, right?
Yes, I mean that's exactly the point that I'm trying to make. That people
Hey,
know
don't
about
go
curling.
offending people.
So maybe, so here's the thing. Maybe the way we introduce cricket in itself should be in a measured sense, right? Maybe T20 shouldn't be a format. T10 is actually a very feasible format, right? Because Olympics in itself happens with a very limited time,
Yeah,
right?
2 weeks.
Like
Yes.
2 weeks, right? And they have to probably host, uh, you know, an entire uh, collection of nations, right? Like, they have so
Yeah.
many nations that are going to be participating, and it's going to be a Herculean effort to actually organize it. So maybe one
Also,
way
the
to,
host city needs to have infrastructure, right? Like the next Olympics is at Paris. Paris, how many stadiums does it have? I'm not sure.
Correct. Right. So
Yeah.
those kind of things will come into picture. But as a format, I think maybe a T10 league would be ideal. Or as weird as it sounds, I don't know if it's even proposed. It's just my theory. A 15-over game might be like could be incorporated. Or another alternative is T10 for like all the games except for the semifinals and the finals, where you could have a proper T20, which
Yeah.
would probably be.
The thing is,
There's a lot of planning that needs.
there's
to
a
go
lot
into
of
it.
planning, first of all, and plus the shorter the overs, I think that reduces the impact of a bowler, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, those kind of things do come into factor, right? Like it shouldn't become like a completely one-sided game.
Dominant,
Right?
yeah.
It shouldn't be a batsman game completely. It should be a fair fight.
Yeah, like that's why I feel T20 is like the right balance. Like you have
T20,
enough
it's true.
overs for the bowler to make an impact, and you have enough class for a batsman to show it.
So I think the execution is very important when it comes to Olympics, right? Because it's a global stage, and many people, like again what Vishnu said, it's like cricket as a sport in itself is a little more complicated than other sports, right?
Yes.
Like for example, football is, it's simple to understand. Like there are rules, yes, I'm not trying to diminish those, but as a sport itself, it's easy to play, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to have so many complex terminologies like, go to short leg or like, things like
Yeah, like before.
Like before.
Mancat.
Yeah.
Mancat is very popular to
Yeah.
these
Yeah, the number of ways you can become out is like
Correct.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, if it's introduced in the right way, with the right support, I guess it'll actually boost. It'll never break the game because nobody who was already in love with cricket will
fall out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But it might or might not attract more.
Yeah. To add on to what your point is, I think we, global sports are somehow compared to football because, the game is so popular, right? And the rules have been the same for like the past 50, 60 years. I mean, for sure, technology has been implemented more and more in football. Like, for example, VAR and stuff, which is again, technology has a role in sports as well. But especially in cricket, I feel like the rules are, changed more frequently, like every year or so. Like Big Bash, for example. Big Bash had some 3 new rules this year, right? And in IPL also this year, there is this new rule called an impact player. Now, nothing wrong with, trying to make the sport more attractive. But, the thing is, stability gives people a chance to, explore the, sport.
I guess you're right. Like if I'm trying to get into a new sport, I don't want like rules to keep changing every few months when I'm trying to catch up with the existing ones. Especially like cricket has so many rules. It's probably one of those sports where like even the biggest fans do not know all the rules.
That is true.
Yeah.
Like I remember there's this legendary spinner, yeah, Muttaya Muralidharan. He was booked by ICC multiple times just for his action. And again, that's not, basically the rule is simple. You're not supposed to throw the ball. You're supposed to, bowl it. The arm action, there is some angle related to it. Now, the specifications of those angles are so tight that, a legendary bowler.
It's not just, it's oddly well defined yet so obscure, right?
Yes.
Like, it's very, very difficult to spot it as an umpire itself, right? Like
yes.
an umpire as a human being, like without, I can just imagine when you mention Muthai Muralidharan, like I think Steve Buckler was the umpire. He was a very prejudiced umpire. That's what I.
That is also true. Yeah.
Every single time he comes on to bowl, he used to to try to find one or the other thing that's wrong with his action, right? So when it comes to rules in themselves, right, you need to be very careful with how you actually define them, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Like, I think another classic case is Sunil Narayan, right? Like with
Yeah.
his, right, like
He had to remodel his action completely,
he
right?
had to
To get
remote his
approved.
action. Correct,
Yeah.
right? So I think the more you try to uh, introduce rules, the more obscure the game becomes, right? Like
Yeah.
it becomes a little more opaque to the people who are actually trying to understand the game.
Yeah.
So you, what I'm trying to say is probably introducing the rules should also be done in a way where it makes sense, right? For example, if the impact player thing is done right in this IPL,
Yeah.
it could actually, you know,
Make it
grab
better.
attention. Yeah,
Yeah. Otherwise, I think it's just going to be a loophole.
But that seems like
correct.
a simple enough rule to understand, though. It's not like
Yeah,
a
it's a
hard
simple
one.
enough rule.
Substitute
Correct.
player and
Substitute
can
player.
bowl out bat. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true. Like it opens up like a whole new world of opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Like uh, again, like I follow a lot of these auction reviews and everything. I
Yeah.
don't know which team bought Piyush Chawla. I forgot which
Mumbai
IPL team
Indians.
bought Mumbai Indians. Was it Mumbai?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I think Joy Bhattacharya and Harsha Bogle were a part of that
Yeah. Yeah.
team.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah. I've seen that talk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think Joy Bhattacharya rightfully mentions that the interesting thing was I think they didn't buy Piyush Chawla to play him as a full-time player, just to
Yes.
use him, but they bought him
As
just to
we,
use him as an impact
yeah.
player, right?
Like when you
Yeah.
go to
So
Chepauk or some pitch like that.
correct. It's interesting. It's interesting to say the
Yeah.
least. It's simple enough, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully the execution goes right, right? Like there
Yeah.
might
Also,
there are
like
no
a
hiccups.
substitute fielder has always been in the rule books. For example,
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's this Mumbai Indians and a KKR player now called Anukul Roy. That guy hasn't featured, in a playing 11 for the past 3-4 years now. But if you see on the pitch, he's always, replacing, someone like an Amit Mishra or, Robin Uthappa.
To field.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I wouldn't call that cheating or something, but it's a loophole, right? Like, come on, you have someone in the playing 11, but, you're not utilizing him because he's a bad fielder. So, that's again, it again goes back to rules. These rules are vague. Some,
I feel like that you shouldn't even call that a loophole, in my opinion, because that's just strategy and that's how you win games, right? It
yeah,
just opens up more thinking and
yeah,
stuff you need to do to win a game rather
yeah,
than just go and play.
yeah. Fair enough. Um, so yeah, these rules they are complicated, but
I think I'd like to add like one final thing to that question of yours of sorry, like how cricket could in itself try to attract more nations. One thing that's always been a little worrisome for me is with how very often it's just three or four nations that are dominating the game, right?
yeah,
It's mostly either India or Australia, right? England, right? And New Zealand, right? Like very occasional. You are happy to see New Zealand. Like
yeah,
whenever New Zealand plays a game and they're doing well, you're like, okay, I want them to win the game. I don't care,
yeah.
right?
It used, I think
Because
they are like the South Africa of the 90s. Like everybody wanted South Africa in the
yeah,
90s and 2000s to win, but they never won it.
right.
Yeah,
And like I feel like there was a time where all the nations used to be equally feared, right? West Indies used to be like,
West
you
Indies
used
had
to
their
feel
legacy, man.
they had their legacy, yes, at one point of time. Like I'm talking about like the early 2000s, right? 2002, 2003, where, you know, West Indies were still feared, right? South Africa had like players like Jacques Callis and
Oh,
Hashim
South
Amla
Africa's
and
golden
Dale
generation.
Steyn. Yeah, that was so Dale Steyn used to like, he used to every ball used to like, have a trail of fire behind it, right? So right now you don't see that, right? Like you don't see, except for teams like, probably Australia, India, and England, who are
No, I mean, there aren't
like,
players who you fear anymore, I guess, because
correct, right?
players have become athletes. They've not become these. They're not like tall and huge like that West Indies, 19 team of
It doesn't even have to be
1970.
tall and huge, is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say,
No,
right?
but
Like,
you need to be impactful, right? Like Dale Steyn had his
yeah,
own aura. Like Shoaib Akhtar,
no,
everyone used to
yeah.
fear him.
Like when you go back to Test cricket, like people used to fear Shivnarayan Chandrapal, right? Like he used to
Yeah.
be like that tiny guy with that very awkward stance. People used to be like, "What the hell am I supposed? He's there like a rock for like such a long time. Like, how do I get him out?" Right? And that's one thing. So what I'm trying to say is, right, instead of trying to appeal the game towards newer nations, I feel like they should appeal the game towards existing nations, right? For example, Bangladesh is not doing that great, right? As much as I'd like to uh, uh, admit that, they do have like certain good players, it's like very limited to like a few players. Probably Shakib Al Hassan is probably like their only standout player throughout from a very long time, right? They had a very good bowler by Mustafizur Rahman, right?
Yeah.
But injuries again
Injuries, yeah.
started to tail him off, right? And other countries like, uh, West Indies, like the classic example, right? It's very sad to see West Indies go down like that, right? And South Africa is heading to a
I
very
think
similar
no, South Africa is
decline.
sort of getting revived. Sri Lanka is going down that path, I
Hopefully,
feel.
yeah, Sri Lanka and West
Sri
Indies.
Lanka also had a golden
Uh,
generation, like
yeah, Sri Lanka
Dilshan,
had like a golden.
Malinga.
Yeah,
Yep.
they came to the finals like against India, right? Like
They won also.
that final. Yeah, like I mean the finals in the World Cup, right? Like
Yeah.
where India won.
Yeah, India. And like
That was also a very. It was not a completely one-sided match, right?
it wasn't.
It was still. Yeah, it was
Gambhir got us out
very
of that.
good. Yeah, Gambhir got us out of that. Like Dhoni came in. It was a fairy tale ending, if I could
It was a fairy tale
say,
ending, yeah.
right? So in general, I feel like when it comes to just that, it becomes very difficult. And I think another factor to that would be tied very closely with funding. West Indies suffered very heavily from that, I believe, right?
Hmm.
Many
Yeah,
players
some
were
yeah. A lot of the players like didn't want to go back and play for West Indies because they were not getting paid. Pollard
and
just continued playing IPL when like the West Indies team called him back. He's like,
Yeah, Russell.
yeah, Russell. They're like, I don't care. Like, if you don't care about me, I don't care about you types.
Yeah, like all these
That's
players.
fair.
Yeah. Like all these players are, playing in literally every league, every T20 league around the world. But when it comes
Yeah.
to, national, it's not that they don't like their country or something. It's just, they're not getting paid.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's
At the end of the
worse
day, you gotta
because
live.
yeah, and it's worse because they do actually. I've heard that they do actually have the West Indies has the capability of funding, right? West Indies in itself does have some extent of that. They were just not ready to do it. And a big factor of that, again, I keep quoting Harsha Bhogle, right? Like the reason why Test match seems to be dying out is because, like I said, the nations that play Test match are mostly India, Australia, New Zealand, and England, right? The reason why other countries don't pay it is because,
Sustainable.
very oddly enough, Test matches are very expensive to organize because it's a 5 day thing. Very little people come for the, they don't go to the stadiums and fill it
The
up
tickets
every
are
day.
free, man, sometimes.
Yeah.
It depends on the nation. That's what I'm trying
Depends
to
on the
say,
nation,
right?
yeah.
If it's India, yes, tickets are free. Like they have enough of funding, they don't care, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's how it is.
I
Like
mean,
to a point
broadcasts
where
make enough money, I guess.
Yeah, broadcast perspective, yeah.
right? And like for countries like Bangladesh and one thing that I liked this time was when India's tour of Bangladesh, they decided to have a test match, right? They were ready to go play a test match with Bangladesh. I'm like, hmm, I didn't expect that, but okay, fine. It did actually grab a lot of people from Bangladesh. Like people were watching the test match. And it was nice to see that. But in general, the funding becomes an issue if it is obviously mismanaged, right? And I feel like ICC needs to, like, again, like, because ICC controls most of the way things are being handled when it comes to like schedules and I think they also have a rule about how much each country can.
Future
Uh,
S program or something like that. Future and something like that.
something like that, right? So the, uh, in general, funding is a very testing subject when it comes to nations that are a little bit under the weather. When it like classic example is West Indies, right? Like Vishnu mentioned, uh, people like Pollard and Russell, who are also
Very talented.
legendary in the game of
Legendary talented, yeah.
in the game of T20, right? So why could they like they could easily just upset teams single-handedly, right? If they play for their nation, like it's a very deliberate move. Why they didn't actually go ahead, and if left unnoticed, it's going to be a very difficult thing. I think it's not being left unnoticed with people with very good journalists actually pointing it out time and time again.
Mm.
So
Like you think if the funding is sort of more, spread out, it could actually, save the game or like make it expanded to further countries.
I feel like funding should be done in a very humble manner. In the sense, when I say humble, the nations that are actually very heavy with their funding, right? For example, India to be the classic, they are literally the forerunner of the game. I will
Absolutely.
blatantly just put that out there, right? Because
Yeah, I think it's all
they have
because of
advertised
broadcasting, right? Yeah.
because of broadcasting rights, yes. And their funding is just phenomenal, right? So one thing that I think is going well for them is to some extent they are trying to spread out their funding towards other countries. I'm not sure how the business implication or like the business motives behind franchising South African league teams under Indian team, like under the IPL team names is, but that's
Yeah.
an example of, I'm not sure if funding is involved in that. Like what I'm trying to say is to give some context to the to the listeners here is South Africa is having their own version of IPL and it is so strikingly similar with
Yes, the
the
team
names
names
of the teams.
especially, and team names and the
It's
jerseys. Yeah.
yeah, and the team names and the jerseys, they are literally just the same thing. Like they have a team for Cape Town. It's so hilarious
MI
that
Cape
it's
Town
called
or something, right?
MI Cape Town.
Yeah, which doesn't make
So
sense. What is it? Mumbai
which
Indians
doesn't
Cape
make
Town?
sense, yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, so with MI Cape Town and Johannesburg Super Kings or something like that, right? So
Yeah.
that is probably, I'm not sure if it's a funding move or whatever it is, but there is an influence being done over there, and people are, like the South African cricket at least seems to be, hopefully it seems to be in a good place. But I'd like the BCCI to actually, help out other associate nations like, the UAE to some extent, right? Probably like also dying out nations like Sri Lanka, right? Like maybe give them a helping hand when it comes to funding, right?
Yeah.
Because
Also,
of these
great
nations.
example of this is probably the story, Afghanistan cricket story. Like,
Yes.
Afghanistan as a country has been through a lot, but cricket is not one of them. Cricket is again something that takes their mind out of everything else going on there. And plus, they've been such a successful nation. They are probably a hot take, but again, I think they're probably doing better than Sri Lanka and West Indies right now.
Yep.
Like if you see the T20 qualifications or the World Cup qualifications, they are sort of around that eighth spot more often than Sri Lanka or West Indies. And again,
That,
great talent coming out of there. There's almost like as if there's a spin factory in Afghanistan. that we have great spinners like Rashid Khan, Mujibur Rahman,
Mujib.
and this just like the top level. There are so many people there.
Yeah, like it was kind of a
Revelation.
let's just like I was. People were obviously disappointed when there was a plan where Australia actually goes for a one-off test match in Afghanistan, and then they called it off, right? Recently,
Yeah.
there was like a little bit of an outburst of disappointed emotions there, especially from the players, because Afghanistan as a team in itself don't get to play a lot. Right? Even if they do play, they play against teams like UAE and probably Pakistan. I'm not sure how that entire thing. I don't think so. They play against Pakistan because they again have some issues.
Yeah.
But in general, right? They don't really get a spotlight. Right? So
Yeah.
it was
To add on
like
to Afghanistan, India has played one test match with Afghanistan. It was the first ever test match with Afghanistan. It was in Bangalore. I have gone to that test match, and I gotta say, Afghanistan, like, of course, they struggled. We won the game in 2-3 days, which was quite obvious. But for them, I remember
it was a
it
big
was
thing
such a
for it was
it
a
was
very big
such a
thing
big
for
thing for
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan, like their first ever test match. Like no matter T20 is going to stay, but again, test match is something like it is the highest level of cricket, right? So for Afghanistan, they aspired to become a test playing nation one day, and they got that. Though it was such a big deal for Afghanistan.
Yep. So yeah, I guess funding is a very pivotal thing when it comes to. So just coming back to the main crux of the point, yes, if you have to have more nations to be involved, I feel like the nations that are already currently involved, they themselves need to be reinforced with proper either funding, support, right? Trying to reduce the number of uh, misfortunes, if I can use that word lightly,
Yeah.
I'm particularly talking with Afghanistan, right?
Mm.
Afghanistan was a revelation as a team, like
Yeah.
with uh, you know, like the people like Rashid Khan and Mujib coming in, right? So and like the batsmen, I forget a few of them. Gulab, some person. I'm sorry, I forget the name.
Gulbuddin was their
Gulbadin,
captain.
yeah,
Yeah.
was their captain, right?
Also, I like
And there
that
was like
pocket dynamite
opener,
guy.
like
Opener like
the opener.
Mohammad
I
Shahzad.
forget, I forget. Yeah, Mohammad Shahzad. Yes, thank you. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he just blew teams away like in the first five overs.
He was their Brendan McCullum.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
He was making
yeah, like
top 10 overs, top 10 overs, which are again toughest. He was making them. He was bossing around, man. Too good.
yep. So yeah, so before trying to appeal to many other nations, that'll obviously have an effect, right? But I feel like it should also be you know you should also strengthen other nations. Like one final point I would like to say is teams like Ireland, right? Like Ireland in particular as a team, they keep pulling out upsets from the bag against
They
England.
always do. Ireland,
Yeah,
Netherlands. Yeah.
like yeah, like okay, England and Ireland. Well, we know who's gonna win. Right?
Yeah.
It's sad to see that they're not able to go forward, but
Yeah.
and mostly it's related to players migrating from Ireland to other nations. Like there are Owen Morgan,
Owen
the
Morgan.
the classic example, Owen Morgan, right? Like he won an entire World Cup, but he's originally, he played a lot. No, I don't know if he played a lot, but he was playing for Ireland. Ireland
Yeah.
are like one of those European nations over there, right? So, yeah, like trying to bring these teams and like trying to keep South Africa, Sri Lanka, and West Indies still somehow the heavyweights again. Instead of making like a 3-team heavyweight, it should be like a 16 heavyweight where you can have like a fair competition within all the nations. I feel that would be
Oh,
the
yeah.
greatest point of cricket.
Yeah. Yeah. So, to move on to the final part of this conversation, uh, it's gonna be about the importance of like T20 cricket, franchise cricket, and then the probably relevance of bilateral cricket moving forward. So what are your thoughts on that?
Uh, I think the club cricket that we have now is like really exciting for cricket. If you look at club culture for any of the other sports, they have one league and like one player can play for one team throughout the year.
Yeah.
But for cricket, it's different. Like leagues generally tend to be only for like 2 months and they conclude, and players get to play for different teams, go around the world, and like I feel like that's really cool. And yeah, that's one take on that. And talking about bilateral cricket, I feel like it's losing its charm because I don't know, like with all the club cricket that's going on, and then like teams going and playing bilateral cricket, and also World Cups are happening more often.
Yeah, it's like
It's we have the ODI World Cup, we have the T20 World Cup, and like things happen more often, and I feel like some teams, like players are playing throughout the year, and
throughout this.
yeah, and they're just tired.
Yeah, and bilateral has become like almost like, no, I wouldn't say irrelevant, but they've become like stepping stones to World Cup, right? Like you
Yeah,
rarely see like the A team of the first team of a country to play, right? It's almost as if, okay, this fellow is good for this role. Let's give him a
yeah,
chance. Let's give him a chance. So I mean,
and
good for people to get a debut and stuff, but you rarely see like the first team of a country play.
yeah, and like I think, I mean, to be honest, club cricket gets more viewership than bilateral series cricket. Obviously, the World Cups like get like a lot of viewership, and that's like the same as
That's
club
the nature.
cricket. But
Yeah.
yeah, but bilateral cricket, not so much anymore. I feel like it's just something that's turned on in the background when I'm like working or
Oh
like
yeah,
doing
right. You do that. You do that for Test cricket also, right? Like if you're just
yeah,
working, you're listening to Harsha Boglia on the comms.
yeah, exactly. And
Like, yeah, just one thing, right? So, as bilaterals, like Vishnu mentioned, right, it seems to be something that's in the decline. It's probably owing to again, like the nations that play the bilaterals, right? Before it used to be like, I believe like this used to be a thing where touring nations, for example, when India goes for a tour to England, right? They used to make sure that they used to at least play one game with a country like Ireland, right?
Yeah.
At least a bilateral game with Ireland, right? For like one of two reasons. One is Ireland gets a spotlight, right? They do get their game, and it's like very close to the nation which India is going to play against, right?
Yeah.
And secondly, it is also, like a warm up for them, right? It's not that they're trying to diminish the quality of players from Ireland. In general, like you do have warm up games. They just substitute one of the warm up games
With the
with a
proper. Yeah.
with a proper game against Ireland. Whether they win or lose, they experiment things over there. I would oddly say that was a very good thing. So
Yeah. So oddly enough, like I used to look forward to, when India used to tour uh Zimbabwe, for example. Like recently India went to Netherlands. I was looking forward to that. Not because I knew the first team wasn't playing, but I was looking forward to, young people like, Arshdeep Singh, for example. He got a chance from that Netherlands tour, right? I was looking forward to them. And because see again, that helps Netherlands cricket grow as well. And it also helps, Indian
and
cricket find their
there's always a fun thing. There's always a certain factor of comedy when there is the occasional upset. Then like
yeah,
oh wow, Virat Kohli got out for a duck against this bowler from Ireland.
yeah.
What are the odds, right? So things like that is always fun, right? And he goes to England and he smashes Anderson all over the place. So
people tend to forget that they are also international cricketers and they're not there like just because they
yeah,
played
correct,
cricket for
correct.
fun.
Yep, yep. But
Also,
yeah,
it must be such a big thing, right? Like, for example, let's say, you know, Um, that I remember one Netherlands player called Van de Beek. Okay, like when he took a wicket of Kohli, it is such a big, like imagine if you're the bowler and you take the wicket of Virat Kohli, it is such a big thing for you, right?
Yeah.
So all these stories are inspiring to them as well. It's not, we are also benefiting from that. Like they are also finding new viewers in Netherlands because Indian team has gone there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
So
nowadays, I don't think it's happening anymore. Mostly
it's not
because,
happening that much. Yeah.
yeah, and it's very, you know, it's streamlined. Again, this probably goes with funding, right? Again, it comes to that factor again. Like nations like, for example, Zimbabwe might not have been like, hypothetically, let's say India tours South Africa, right? They would usually want either a test match with Zimbabwe or like a ODI against Zimbabwe, right? Or probably even a two-off T20 game with Zimbabwe, right? But it usually doesn't happen because Zimbabwe might not have the funds to conduct those games, right? So
Yeah.
funding becomes a very pivotal factor when it comes to things.
Yeah. So to add on to this topic, oddly enough, I think bilateral cricket is sort of losing its relevance, because if you see the broadcasting rights and all, that way cricket is in a very good space. Like the broadcasting rights are just going up and up, which is good, for the players more especially, and for young cricketers who want to become professional cricketers. It's good for them. uh, so that's a good thing. So I feel like if that's the way forward, then it's probably good for the game. Like if you see other sports around, other team sports around the world, NFL, NBA, um, Premier League. The thing about that is the club aspect of the sport sort of dominates than the nations aspect of the sport. And by nations aspect, I mean the bilateral series, right? So out of, let's say the sport is being played for 9 months out of the 12, 7 months or like 8 months out of that is going to club cricket player. And again, I think it's just, like franchise cricket in general, it is just more popular than nations. Like there is this, it builds culture, right? Like uh you look forward to when Manchester United is playing at home, for example, and that builds culture, right? So, and like I remember, like in NFL, right? Like people do these celebrations after when they hit it home, like the giddy celebration, or like you know remember somebody in cricket also had a celebration. I forgot his name.
Many people have their celebration.
Many people have their celebration.
Many people, Hasaranga, for example.
Yeah, Hasaranga, for example. Remember that Hassan Ali of Pakistan, he has his own celebration, right? So
Sheldon Cottrell.
Sheldon Cotton.
Sheldon Cottrell, yes, that
Yeah.
is the person I'm talking about.
The salute.
The salute, yeah. So all these things, again, they probably don't. These are little things that young people look up to, and when young people look up to that, again, popularizes the sport. So these little things, like if like, let's say if cricket is moving to franchise cricket, then if these little things are done right, then I think the expansion can be massive. And to give a proof of this year in the IPL, for the first time we have associate nations as well in participating in cricket teams, right? Like we have Sikandar Raza, who is a part of one of the teams.
Zimbabwe.
Yeah,
he's part of one of the teams. Yeah, he is Zimbabwe captain.
He's a Zimbabwe captain. We have this guy called David Visa, who is, originally from South Africa, but currently Namibian. He plays for Namibia cricket. So it's probably a big thing in Namibia, right? And now people from Namibia will look up to IPL and one day aspire to become an IPL cricketer. And let's say if IPL cricket is becoming the norm, then like expand the window to like 7 months, or like have an extended season. Have
You know,
teams from.
you know what I like? So okay, what I liked, I probably like the Champions Trophy. You guys remember that?
Oh
Yeah,
yes,
Champions League.
Champions
Yeah.
Trophy. I don't know why it stopped. I was looking forward to.
That was awesome, man. Come on. Like you have like the leagues, the big leagues, right? I think I know where the issue is, right? Probably they have very limited number of players. For example, you have Faf du Plessis being the captain for
Correct.
Giants
That was
Super
the only
Kings.
problem of Champions Trophy, right?
Yeah.
Like players had to
But then
choose which team they wanted to play.
I guess it should probably be put into a way, like for example, I think it could one resolution could be like, let's say Giants Super Kings and RCB are there in a Champions League. I think by default, Faf du Plessis should play for Giants Super Kings because he is from a South African origin, right? So it should probably be bent that way. But again, like that's hypothetical points. But yeah, uh, again, what comes to my mind is what Harsha Bhogle said in one of the interviews. He said, cricket as a sport is probably not dying, it's just probably evolving.
Evolving,
Yeah.
yeah.
Where, yes, it's not going to be like probably another 15, 20 years down the line. It could be a scenario where it's similar to how the football leagues, right? Where you have just league games that are dominated throughout different
And
parts
then
of
like
the.
World Cup every 1 year, 2 years.
Correct.
I still don't want bilateral to go away. This is a very selfish reason because
Uh-huh.
Indian players don't get to play outside of India in other
That
leagues,
is
That
and the only way they get to play in like
that's actually a
international
very
pitches
major
is
thing.
that is a
just
very
playing
valid point.
bilateral
Yeah, yeah.
games.
Yeah.
And until BCCI allows like Indian players to go abroad and play in other leagues,
Yeah.
we want bilaterals to keep happening.
That
It is in our
that's
best
That is true.
interest.
Yeah,
that is very valid aspect. Like you can't go to South Africa being a debutant, and face the bouncy pitches,
Yeah,
or like the green, absolutely green pitches in England.
exactly.
So yeah, you need
So yeah,
experience for
that's
that, and that again, that is the relevance of bilateral cricket these days.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, think about it this way: the World Cup's in India this year, and every team has equal opportunity. It's not like us going and playing in
Yes.
England, where England is probably the favorite if they have the good
Yeah.
team. If they have a good team, they're probably the favorites because they know how to play in their pitches.
Yeah.
But everyone knows how to play in India because of
Yeah,
IPL.
everyone knows how to play in India. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a
that
very
is
valid
actually
point.
very true.
Mm.
So yeah, just rounding things off with that, right? Like so,
Mm.
the way cricket is probably evolving right now is where you have the leagues that are taking place at different parts of the world, right? Maybe it might morph into an extremely long league with uh teams from all over the world, like something like the Champions Trophy that used to happen, but that was like for like a very short amount of time.
Yeah,
But probably you can there could be like the Big Bash again. Wishful thinking. I want to have a Big Bash and an IPL, uh, collaboration.
yeah.
I
Like
would love to see
I
that.
think again that used to happen in Champions Trophy. Like RCB
Champions Trophy,
used
that
to
used to
play
happen.
Sydney Sixers.
Dude, that was so hyped. I
That
was
was
so
so
hyped
high.
every single day. Like there was
Like
one
I
time
remember
RCB
Srinath
reached the
Arvind,
final, right?
facing a guy like Scott Boland or someone.
Scott Poland, yeah. Like
Yeah,
It's really because of how many players like play for this like
that is true.
like intersection of teams. That's the problem.
Intersection of teams, yeah, that's true.
That is
But yeah, like
that's why Champions League cannot come back, unfortunately.
unfortunately, it used to be fun. Like in football has Champions Trophy, even NBA. NBA has playoffs, right? Where I mean, NBA every team plays every team, but playoffs is when it's a knockout game, right? So it
Yeah.
used to be fun, and
Yeah.
yeah, where else? I mean,
like
yeah. Where else can you see RCB playing a team like Otago Volts, which is like from
Yeah,
New Zealand?
yeah.
You probably haven't even heard of it, but it
Shit.
used to get me excited
it's
because
awesome, right? It's
it's
awesome.
fun. I used to learn about new
It's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
It's wishful thinking, but yeah, like leagues might dominate mostly because of again broadcasting rights.
Yeah.
I was looking at the T20, like the Women's T20 World Cup, right? That's something that's happening right now.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the partners and the broadcasters. Like, dude, like 40% of them are like Indian companies like Byju's, MRF, Bharat Pay. Like,
Yeah.
you see how an ICC Women's T20 World Cup that's happening in South Africa is being managed and supported by mostly companies from India, right? Like, that's
Like I was
again how
surprised to
broadcasting is
see,
happening.
Vimal Pan Masala on ICC 2019 World Cups happening in England. Like on the broadcast, it is Vimal Pan Masala, which is
Yeah.
something is there, which exists in every billboard around every stadium in India. But if it's a World Cup, you probably don't want to have Vimal Pan Masala, right?
Not if they're paying you money.
Not if they're paying you money. Byju's, for example.
I was like, why is a Byju's billboard there in West Indies? I'm like,
Yeah,
do they
Baidu
even know
sponsored
what Byju's?
Baidu sponsored the FIFA World Cup also, and they got Messi to make a custom post, paid partnership post on Instagram, and it is still existing on Lionel Messi's Instagram. So, like, I think money talks, and that is how the sport is run, right?
Definitely. So
Yeah,
coming back to the league format, I don't think I ever want cricket to going to a year full of, a year-long league. I like the 2-month IPL, and then if new leagues come up that are just as good as IPL, I would watch those also. Like I'm
that's
fine with following 2, 3 different leagues.
dude. You know
I'm
what?
pretty sure like people from Australia or England, they follow Big Bash and IPL, and
Yeah.
like the leagues they have like the 100 and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
really do that. I just watch the IPL.
because
Yeah.
I feel it's probably because of
Indian
Indian
players.
players not going.
Correct. Like,
Yeah,
come on.
like,
If Virat Kohli is playing for Sydney Thunder, would you not support that?
yeah, dude. Like I would
I
still watch
would
the
probably
Big Bash.
watch that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that would be.
Melbourne
I don't know why
Renegades, for
that's not
example.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why that's happening. Probably some internal uh, business.
No, I
No,
think
it's
it's
as
just
simple as this. They just
exclusivity, right?
exclusivity, and another simple thing is they're playing throughout the year, irrespective of whether they're playing
Yeah.
IPL or not. They have like matches throughout the year for some reason, and
No, but
they
one solution to that is, let's say, players out of your contracted ones, like 25 players, 25 to 30 players,
Correct.
Indian cricket team
yeah
get paid
Like
throughout the year, right?
I would actually watch a Big Bash game and like which I would probably watch a game.
If that
where
particle,
Sydney
for
Thunders-
example, if he
yeah,
plays,
if that particle is playing
if he play,
for Sydney
yeah,
Thunders, right? Yeah, I would.
if he
I would
plays for
actually,
Sydney Thunder, would that not be exciting?
yeah, I would actually sit and watch that. Right? That's fun.
And it also helps him become accustomed to cricket Australia,
Yeah,
right?
like
Australian
so here's the thing, like
condition, right?
Indians already go to England to play. What is that? They have their like the test match thing in England.
the county
Ch-
cricket.
County cricket, yeah, like they already
Yeah.
probably again
and
that's
and yeah, they do allow the women cricketers to go play Big Bash League, right?
Yeah.
So I don't get it. Like, just allow the men
yeah, we
also to
have
go
like
play.
so
It's
many
fine.
players. Like
We
India
have
Have players to spare.
I don't understand.
we can make like 3 teams from all the existing players.
Yeah.
It's
It's crazy. The talent is immense. So might as well, help them.
Yeah, if we just need to, you know, have players let them go play whatever league they want, so that they don't end up leaving and going to different countries to play
Yeah.
there.
For
That's
yeah.
that's slowly happening. Like a lot
That
of
is
players from India are
yeah,
going to
yeah.
the US and playing there.
Correct. Unmukt Chand again,
Yeah,
he was our World Cup winning captain in
yeah,
2010, 2012, one of the years. And now he is playing for US cricket. I mean, good for US cricket that they have, talent in him. But we sort of missed the trick there.
yeah.
And
Ideally, we don't want to let players who are good go away
yeah.
just
And
because
now
we have restrictions that don't allow them to make a living.
and now he is playing in Big Bash League, representing India and America,
Yes.
which is good. All right. So do we have any final thoughts before we wrap it up, or are we shall we close it out?
I think I have all my thoughts out on the table. So
Maybe probably like I would end with saying that, uh, cricket as a sport in itself is just tying us back to the first question. No, it's not in a bad state at all. Right? It's in a good state with at least how the existing fans are. It's just that certain forms of the game and certain countries are probably just
Dominating.
not dominating. And probably to put things in a short perspective would be it's evolving. Like every other sport, it's in an evolution phase, right? Just like how Indian cricket evolved with captains like Kapil Dev, and then went to a dynamic captain like Ganguly, then went to a very cool and calculated
Dhoni.
captain like Dhoni, and then went back to like fire and spice with Virat Kohli. Right? It's evolving continuously. Like cricket as a sport is also evolving, and hopefully it evolves for the best.
Yeah. Yep. Even to close this episode out, cricket's again massive sport. It has at least 2 billion following if you just include India and Pakistan.
yeah,
So it's a massive sport. It gets more eyeballs than Super Bowl and maybe even FIFA World Cup on some matches. So it's a massive sport. All it needs is just a little bit of careful handling in this phase, because good management, because again, sport is still expanding. Like we just had 2 more teams in IPL, and the valuation of IPL grew quite a lot, 20 to 30%, which is massive. We have women's IPL coming up this year. We have Indian owners.
I'm actually excited for that.
Yes, I'm actually looking
IPL.
forward to that. All in all, sport is expanding. We also have Indian owners, expanding their ownership to South African leagues, to UAE leagues, and yeah, it's a good time to be a cricket fan, and the viewership is just increasing.
Right.
And with that, we are ready to say goodbye. Okay, it was great having you, and bye.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for having me too.